Hey, hello everyone. Good morning. I will be going to your trainer for this demo. And so I'm going to explain about the performance testing with the Loader tool as well as Jmeter tool. So let me introduce about myself. Basically, completed my graduation from a UPT Engineering College, which is placed in Ghaziabad. And I have completed my BTech in Computer Science branch. And I have total 6+ years of experience in IT, which is completely in the performance testing as well as performance engineering. And I have specialized in multiple testing tools, that is mostly performance testing tools like Loader, Jmeter. Mostly for the scripting, Loader we have and Jmeter. And other tools like for executions, we have Controller, Blazemeter, and Splunk App Dynamics for monitoring of the executions. Then we have reporting and result tools like analyzers in the Loader. And I also have experience in giving multiple KTs and trainings within the company and outside the company as well. So that is basically a brief introduction about myself. So what will be the scope of this demo? This demo basically I'm going to explain about the basics of performance testing. Like first I'll explain about the basics of performance testing. What is performance testing? What is the scope of performance testing in future? And then I'll explain brief about performance testing. Then I'll go in the deep of the tools like Loader and Jmeter. So these basically slides going to cover about Loader and Jmeter for performance testing. And after that, the brief introduction of both the tools and all the topics covered, I'll give you a hands-on practical use of these tools, how we're going to script, how we're going to do some customizations and all. And then once we are done with these both tools, I will go to, if time permits, we'll go through some additional details, additional tools like Blazemeter and Postman, some other topics like distributed testings and all. So yeah, so first thing is what is going to be covered in Loader. So Loader is basically a tool which is mostly is being used for performance testing. Okay, so in Loader there are a lot of things. First, there are three components basically, which is there are three parts like scripting, execution, and the result preparation. That is called analysis. So it has three components. First is for scripting, we have virtual generator Vugen, that is called Vugen. And then once we are done with the scripting, we have to execute that script as well. So for that we have controller. And then once the execution will be done, we will be having a result preparation. So once the test is done, we have to prepare a result. So for that we have called analyzer. So there are three components in Loader. Okay, so in Loader, first we'll start with the recording. So basically for scripting, we have to record whatever the web-based application is having the flows, right? Let's say if we have any e-commerce website, and we have to predict what needs to be covered in performance testing, like submit the order or adding to the cart. So these are the major functionality which mostly needs to be tested for performance testing. So first thing is we have to record that flow using load runner. That is also part of Vugen, like I've told, used for scripting. And then second thing is the scripting. Once the recording is done with all the steps, whatever, add to cart, like the steps are basically login, then we go to the product, we add to the cart that product, and then we submit the order. So that steps we need to record first. Then second comes the scripting. How are we going to script the recorded flow? So there are multiple things. Once we get the recording, we'll have regenerated script, whatever we have recorded. Then we have to modify something in the scripts. Like we have topics like parameterization, correlation, and error handling. So these are the topics, the brief topics which we are going to cover in detail as well. So parameterization basically, like we have a username and password. When once we log into the application, we'll get a username and password. So those things are called which are static. The test data which are static are needs to be parameterized. That is called parameterization. And correlation is basically the data which is going to change dynamically according to the application. That is basically, I will give you an example like session ID. So session IDs, or if you log into any e-commerce website, the user will log in, he'll create a session. So that ID is basically going to change as per the user, as per the number of times he'll going to log in. So those things, the data which is going to be dynamic, that needs to be correlated. So these are the major topics, two topics which is going to cover in scripting, which is the most important topic as a part of scripting. Then we have text check handlings. How are we going to capture, let's say, if you're logged in, how are you going to tell that the transaction is successful? So you have to capture a text check that the user has logged in. So how are you going to capture? For that also we're going to check in scripting. Then it comes error handling. How are we going to handle the error? And yeah, that is the most important topics in the scripting. Then comes the replay part. So once the scripting is done, every modifications, all the customization in the scripting is done, then we're going to replay the script, that how the script is working fine. If any errors in the parameterization or correlation or any issues, we have to replay the script first. So that is the third thing which you're going to do in Vusion. Then it comes the debugging part. So let's say if we have any issues in the scripts, how are we going to debug that issue? So that is the most important part which comes in the scripting. Okay, so that we're going to cover also. And yeah, so there are three components like I've told you: scripting, execution, and result analysis. So first 4 points are basically for the scripting. So once all the scripts are done for all the flows, then we go for the execution, where we create our load profiles. Load profiles means what test we are going to run, either it's load test or stress test. So according to the load scenarios, we design our test. So that comes under the execution part. So once the scripting is done, we'll go for the execution. We'll design our scenario in controller. Like for scripting we have Vusion, and for execution we have controller. So we design our scenario in that tool. Then we upload our scripts. We define the virtual users, how many load we are going to run for that script, and then we execute the test. During that execution, we have monitoring also. Like let's say if we are running a test for 1 hour, we have to monitor all the components. We have to monitor our test, how it is going to behave during the load test, how the application is going to behave during the load test, all the errors, all the past transaction, all the failed transactions. So these all things we are going to monitor while executing a load test. Okay, so once two components are done, then we have to get a results. So once the execution is done, your test is done. How are you going to report? How are you going to get the stats for the load test? Like load test basically it shows how many past transaction, failed transaction, what is the response time, 90th percentile average response time, how many errors. So all details we have to share with the respective audience. So the last part comes here is result analysis. So here we, using analyzer, will get the results which has all the stats related to the performance testing of that test. And once the result will be generated, we have to share with the required audience. That also we are going to cover it, how we're going to analyze that results. It has multiple parts in the analyzer also, like 90th percentile, and we will analyze the graphs also, what is going to generate in the analysis. So this is what we're going to cover in load runner tool. And the next is Jmeter. So Jmeter is also basically a same tool. So the difference is basically from Jmeter and load runner is, the important part is it's not a licensed tool. Jmeter is free tool and the load runner is a licensed tool. It basically gives, I think, 100 users to run in a free trial, and Jmeter is totally free. So you can just download it in your machine and just create a script and run it also. Since it has three components here, but Jmeter doesn't have three components. It only has one tool, which includes scripting, execution, and result analysis. You can do all three things in the Jmeter. So in this Jmeter also we're going to cover the same things, because the topics are same. The concepts are same in performance testing, that we have to record for any application, we have to script for any application, and then we have to debug, replay, execution, and result analysis. So these are the three all topics which are going to cover for both the tools, Loader and Jmeter. Okay, so in the Jmeter, we're going to also cover the recording of any web-based applications. Like in the Loader, we have picked any e-commerce or any applications. Other than that, Loader, we will pick any other applications apart from Loader application. Like we will pick e-commerce or anything. Then for that Jmeter, the recording flow basically is different as compared to the loader. So the syntax or all the functions and all is totally different as compared to the loader, but the concepts are basically same in the loader. So first what we'll do, I will tell you how to install the Jmeter and everything. I will set up all the Jmeter prerequisites. Then we'll go through the applications manually. First, whatever web-based applications we have, we'll pick that application. Okay, and then we'll record that application, whatever flows we have, like I've told in the loader, add to cart or place an order. These steps, if we have in any other applications or if any other flow we have, we'll pick that up flows into the recording. Okay, we'll record that sessions one by one, and then so in basically recording we have multiple things. Like during recording we will create a transactions for each step, like start transaction, what is the name of the transactions. Let's say you are logging to the application, we'll create a transaction, login. Then what is the next step? We'll have a dashboard, we'll give a dashboard. Then we'll submit order, we'll give a transaction name as submit order. So all the urls will, whatever transactions we have, will come in one transaction. So that recording also I'll show you during the session. Then once we'll record all the flows, the scripting will come. Like in Roadrunner, parameterizations and correlations are totally different as compared to the Jmeter. So here we have config elements for parameterizations. There we'll create our CSV to add our test data, that will show during the session. And the correlation, we have most of the things like regex, boundary extractor, regex extractor, so that we will use during capturing this dynamic data. And also we have multiple things like customization of the script, which comes like adding the think time. Basically it's basically a stoppage time during each transaction, so that also will add as per the. So in the real world scenario, the user will come and it's not going to access the next step just after before the next step, so there will be a gap between two steps. So for that we'll add a think time, that also we're going to cover in this session. And some other things like bean shell processor, if we have anything apart from the scripting and all, like coding thing, we'll also cover that. And yeah, these are the most important topics which comes in the scripting, like parameterization, correlation, and also text checks, error handling. These all things we'll cover in scripting. Then for the replay also, we'll once the scripting is done, we'll run the script in the replay. We'll get all the stats in a view result tree. That is basically a listener we'll get in Jmeter, which captures all the data once you run the script. So in that view result tree, we'll debug errors. We'll have errors. If we have errors, we can debug through the request and response. So there we can see whether the request is incorrect or the response is coming incorrect. So from that listener, we can capture everything and debug our script. So once it is done, for the execution, there are two things. Like I've told, we have Blazemeter tool, that is a third-party tool. For that also we can use for execution. So it has multiple load generators and cloud generators which can be used for execution. So since if any web application, let's say Amazon or Facebook, it has a user from all the locations. So for that we can use Blazemeter and give users from different locations to get the performance stats. Or if you want, you can also run in on-prem, that is on premises, using Jmeter. But for that we should have a PC which can support that many users, that many CPU and memory. So generally, if we have more than 20,000 or 1,000 users, 1,000, 5,000 more users, then we use Blazemeter. That is a cloud tool. So that we can cover using both execution part. We can cover on-prem as well as cloud. And then once the execution is done, we will get a result. So in Blazemeter, we'll get all the results in proper graph and table wise, so that we can export it and we can share with the required audience, or you can prepare the observations for that. And for the Jmeter tool, we'll get our stats table, only the table and graphs also, but the look wise, if you see, the Blazemeter results are better than as compared to the Jmeter. So that we'll also discuss during our result analysis. And yeah, so this is what we are going to cover in Jmeter as well as Loader. Okay, and in Jmeter there are few more things which we'll cover during the topics, like during this Jmeter session. Like we have add-on topics also like how we'll do the distributed testing. So distributed testing, basically, what is distributed testing is basically we are going to run, since Jmeter doesn't provide multiple load generators. So for that we have to do distributed testing. So we have to define our load generators from different machines, and we have to perform a testing. So it is basically distributed testing. And API testing also we can cover during this test, during this UI testing. So basically, performance testing can be done from in the UI. So these two, Jmeter and Loader, we are going to cover for web-based application. That is the UI part, UI testing. And the additional topics we can cover also API testing, which can be done using Postman. So that also we're going to cover during this session. And the third, and it is also important part for the performance testing, that is Blazemeter. This is third party tool provided by Blazemeter. That is, so like for Loadrunner we have a controller to execute, but for Jmeter we don't have any specific tool to execute in the cloud. So for that we have Blazemeter. So Blazemeter basically provides a cloud generators, cloud generators. We can, if we want to run our test from another location, another geographical locations, like in the US East or US West, or any AWS servers load generators. So we can use Blazemeter for that. This is also a paid tool, but for a free version we can use around 10 to 5 users to execute the Jmeter scripts. So this is also we will cover. This is also now a very trending tool, Blazemeter. So this is also we will cover during our session. And these are some additional courses which we are going to look during the sessions. Like first thing is this is the documentation basically, which is for the load runner, which we're going to look during the session. And the second is also for, this is also documentation for load runner as well as Jmeter. So these, all the contents you can get from these links during the session. And yeah, projects which we are going to cover during the testing, like the hands-on applications basically are these performance testing on e-commerce applications. Like we will pick any e-commerce application which has add to cart, or some flight booking applications we can pick for the testing of the application. And API testing, like I've said, we will have an add-on topics for the Postman. So we can also test APIs using fake APIs. We will have a fake APIs, so we can test those APIs also using Postman. Yeah, and lab setup is basically, these are the prerequisite which we will need during our testing. That you should have internet, high speed internet, and a laptop or desktop which basically supports to download the tools which we're going to cover, like Loader and Jmeter. And these are the 6 system requirements you should have during your sessions in your laptop. Like it should have a Windows 7 or above, 500 GB hard disk, and the memory and CPU cores. And yes, and mock interviews also we're going to cover. So once we have all the sessions on Loader and Jmeter, we'll have, like, we are going to get perfect on both the tools. I will also conduct some interviews for some demo interviews for you guys, like for freshers. Also, we'll have some practice tests. We'll have some Q&A, and I will also share some interview questions which are generally asked nowadays by any MNCs. So that also I'm going to share. And for experienced people also, since I have 6+ years experience, I can also have some experience on interview asking, like getting the interviews and taking the interviews. So I can also share those experience with you guys as well as the practice test. Yeah, and the certifications, like, yeah, once you guys are completely professional on these tools, and if you why guys want to pursue any certificate, or if you want to do any certification, these are the most trending certificates for performance testing. That is, first, the load runner professional certified professional exam. Basically, this is for the load runner tool to get the get the certification on load runner tool. And this is for the Jmeter tool, and this is for completely for the performance testing. So these are the foundation level performance testing certificate, which majorly asked in most of the companies, and it's an add-on if you get any one of the certificates in your resume. Yeah, and once you will done with this session, you will also receive a certificate of achievements, which is also a great add-on in your resume. Once you will get the certificates, you will have all the training certificates from Loadrunner as well as Jmeter. So it is a great add-on. Once you interview in any company or anywhere, you will get a benefit from that. Thank you for attending the demo.